My Tormek tip for today is just general machine maintenance. In a previous Tormek tip I went over how you keep the drive wheel grippy, which is in underneath here, but today I'm going to talk about just a few maintenance tips. Now there's a lot of information, very good information, and Tormek have their own recommendations. Here is just my approach that I like to take to the Tormek. Now today I'm just going to be using the DC250 as just to demonstrate what I do. Just put it on just so the shaft doesn't come out. There we go. Now, excuse me, the first step is what to do when the leather wheel or wheels become clogged up with compound. Over the time the compound builds up and up and up, and you need to clean it off. Now what I do is I get a this is an old blade. You can use the back of a knife, back of an old knife if it's straight, or any piece of steel that's straight. Normally I do it from the front, but I'm just behind it today just to show you. You use the steel to remove any old compound as it builds up, and you can see the leather is exposed there and the compound's coming off there. There's not a lot of build up here. I wouldn't normally do it at this stage. I'm just demonstrating it here. And just get all the old compound off. Now what I do to refresh it, they recommend light machine oil. I'm not too keen on that because I think the machine oil will harden the leather over time. So I use a material called ballistol. This is a general rust preventative. You use it on your tools just to give a light coating on your tools. It's readily available in most countries, I believe, and you can get it off eBay, or sometimes you'll have it at your local hardware store. So that's the material there. That's the ballistol there. You can get it in a spray can. You can get it in a bottle, a non-spray can bottle, a little bottle with a top on it. I've got them both, and I decant it a little bit into a little plastic container with a nozzle on it, and I use that on my tools. Just put a few drips on the tools, rub it with a rag, and it prevents rust build up, and it also tends to dissolve the surface rust, so it keeps your tools nice and fresh. What I do is I just take a rag, or in this case paper towel, just spray a little bit on the surface there. You do tend to get a bit of overspray, and clean off any excess. You don't have to clean it all off, and put a little bit on the wheels here as well. And then you can then take your compound and reapply your compound. I just put a little bit of the Tormek say I take a little bit off the tip and push it out like this. I like to put a little bit in my finger. It's a bit messy, but it works. You can feel it's going on, and then it's ready to hone again. It gives you a nice coating on there, and the ballistol soaks in and keeps the leather nice and soft and supple, as they say in the classics. So that's my first tip. My second tip has to do with the shaft itself and prevention of rust on the shaft. Now I'll just take this off and expose the shaft. Now you can see it there with the washer behind it. Now this shaft is stainless steel, and stainless steel, despite its name, will rust. It'll rust more if you have dissimilar metals touching one another, but in this instance you've got a steel core and you've got the steel shaft. You won't get that problem, but when I got the machine, I bought this machine second hand, and when I got the machine, the old stainless shaft had completely rusted. It was just blistered with rust. The old wheel was stuck on there, and I had to get a new shaft, new wheel. And they'd neglected it over time and let water sit in the stone. They had the standard stone, which is porous and holds water, and it just sat on there and it was rusted away. So if you are in a situation where you are concerned that it may corrode, I use this material here. It's an anti-seize lubricant, but it's very, very good at rust prevention on things like this. It's used on machinery where they'll put it on bolts, for instance, if they're in a high temperature situation, in engine bolts. I'll put this a little bit of this on a thread, and it'll stop the thread seizing, but it won't allow the thread to come out. Now, hang on. I'll just put a little bit here. So you only need the tiniest amount here. So I mean, a bottle like this will last you a lifetime, but you just put a little bit on your shaft here, just the slightest of coatings on there, and it puts a coating of lubricant on the anti-seize on there, and it'll just prevent rust. When you slide this back on, it goes on the inside of the wheel, and that's it. The washer does tend to stick to it when you put it on, but as you can see, it's just left the slightest of coatings on the shaft itself, and you can clean it off the washer if you want to, but there's probably no need. It helps prevent rust on the washer as well, and that's all you need. So that'll help prevent rust on the shaft. The other tip I have is for the lubrication of the bearings. Now this is just this is what Tormek recommend, and this is what I've found to be a good lubricant in this situation. You need to re-lubricate your bearings. Tormek recommend once a year, once every 6 months for heavy use. If you're a commercial user and you're using it every day, all day, every day, then probably more often, maybe once a month, once a week. Depends on how often you want to do it, but it doesn't take long. All you need to do is to take the wheels off, the honing wheel off. You don't even need to do that. You can just pull the shaft out, but better to take the honing wheel off. That way you can get to the motor spindle, but you can still put it on and on just by moving the motor like that. Move the motor back a bit, up a bit, and you can pull the shaft out. See the shaft coming out there. Puts it in, then the motor can go back. But this stuff here is really, really sticky. You can see it's really sticky. And what you do is you take the shaft out, right out, put a little bit on the shaft where it goes in there, a little bit on the shaft where it goes in there, put a little bit inside the bearing there and there and there, and then put it all back together again. You don't need much, just a thin smear of it, and that's the stuff I use, but there are many, many, many white lithium greases around, and that's what I use to lubricate the shaft. So yeah, refresh your wheel, antifreeze on the shaft there, and re-lubricate your bearings. And if you do that regularly, your machine will be like new for the rest of your life, and you can pass it on to your children or grandchildren, and then they'll have a machine to use for the rest of their lives. These do last forever if you look after them.